We believe in the nations of Africa, in the continent-wide spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation.
The African continent is home to many of the fastest-growing economies in the world, with the rapidly expanding middle class, a young, diverse workforce, urbanizing populations, and endless opportunities.
One of the most important elements of it to me is to shift the narrative in the way that the West engages with Africa writ large. For far too long, it has been seen as a region filled with problems and few opportunities. And I think that we should be shifting that to look at it as a region that does have challenges, but is also filled with opportunities.
Prosper Africa brings together the power of 17 U.S. government agencies and market experts to identify investments, secure deals, and create new trade pathways between the nations of Africa and the United States.
I'm a huge fan of Prosper Africa. I've seen what it can do and how it can help companies like Cisco and how engaged the people on the ground are. They also bring a very clear and objective view of what their role is going to be, what their expectations from Cisco are.
We're a one-stop shop, so companies don't have to waste valuable resources navigating Washington to do business in the United States and across the African continent.
Working with Prosper Africa is so easy because there's a deal room and we're able to present a pitch. And Prosper Africa basically stands as an intermediary between us and investors and businesses that could be interested and help bridge the gap. So it actually ends up being easier for us than to spend the effort chasing individual investors sort of across the US.
Through Prosper Africa, the U.S. government has helped close hundreds of deals, generating billions in new exports and investments. And the prospects for future growth and continued shared prosperity are as large and as vibrant as the continent itself.
I used Prosper Africa's support to identify the appropriate funders for our organization.
Prosper Africa can give us that introduction. They can give us the credibility. They can help us validate us as being good actors. And that's the important thing.
Being able to use this Prosper Africa platform allows us to reach the right investors. That allows us to grow and scale our business to the rest of the emerging markets.
Working hand in hand with the private sector and African governments, Prosper Africa strengthens two-way trade and investment, supporting thousands of jobs for African and American workers.
We must all work together to advance our shared vision of a better future, a future of growing trade and investment that advances prosperity for all our nations.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa. 15 million members, empowered to learn, to create, to grow, to harvest, to lead, to dream. Equity. Karibu member.
When I think about Minnesota African United, I think
just that platform where like it kind of brings everyone together.
A conduit, for professionals to
learn, educate, and discuss problems and possibly solution for all Africans to improve the life of Africans in Minnesota.
To me, is that umbrella organization where I believe every African diaspora in Minnesota should belong to.
Minnesota African United seeks to build a bridge between African and the diaspora and African living on the continent to create a marketplace where goods and services can be traded globally.
There are all kinds of professional development opportunities. African immigrants in the state of Minnesota are provided opportunity to be, players, in the economic activities of the state.
If you have the commitment to empower your community, then this is a place for you.
In thriving for the welfare of all Africans within Minnesota, MAU has established 10 working committees with people that are passionate and working around the clock on all issues pertaining to Africa. If your subject of interest is not listed, join us so we can create a committee around your interest.
People like me and you trying to see how we can help and grow ourselves. Remember, if you're not at the table, you're in the menu.
We can decolonize our mind, or at least get that opportunity to see one another not just as West African or East African or Southern Africa, but as African together, trying to solve problem with African solution.
Like the African proverb goes, like you go farther together in order to empower like the whole community to basically rise up.
Hello, good morning, everyone. The Cabinet Minister, Honorable Chipoka Mulenga, MP, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. Mr. John Anton Mulongoti, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. Ambassador Humphrey Chivanda, Permanent Secretary, National Coordinator for the Great Lakes. Acting Permanent Secretaries, National Relations and Cooperation. Mr. Lubasi Mungandi, Director, Development Cooperation Organization. Mr. Albert Halwampa, Acting Director General, Zambia Development Agency, ZDA.
The past couple of days here, and it's been a constant stream.
Donald Marquich, Chairperson of the World Fair Bid Committee Education Fund and former Minnesota Secretary of State. The Deputy Chief Mission accredited to the Zambia, US, Washington, DC, Mrs. Margaret Kapia. Representative from Zambia UN Mission, New York. Representative from Zambian embassies. Zambian government officials present. Representative from Zambia, representative from Prosper Africa, representative from the Board of Minnesota Africans United. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I am your host, Betty Mwangala Muhau, founder of BMMSWIFT Consulting Group. On behalf of the organizing committee and the management of BMMSWIFT Consulting Group, we welcome you to our first business webinar of new opportunities of trade and investment in Zambia. With the program Diaspora Push Agenda 2023 and Beyond program, Connecting Minds, Creating Wealth. This in promoting investment for Zambia in diaspora. This is in partnership with Minnesota Africans United, Zambia Development Agency, ZDA, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Prosper Africa, and World Fair Bid. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, please feel free and enjoy the presentations. I hand over the mic to my colleague, the CEO and founder of Minnesota Africans United, Mr. Basil Ajuo. Over to you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful welcome remarks, Betty. My name is Basil Ajuo, and I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of Minnesota Africans United. On behalf of myself and all the board members and staff of Minnesota Africans United, welcome you to this webinar, New Opportunities of Trade and Investment in Zambia. Minnesota Africans United is a coalition of African diaspora communities in the upper Midwest region of the United States of America, with representation from 55 African countries. Our vision is simple: improving the quality of lives of Africans living in the United States by actually connecting them with businesses across the United States and opportunities in Africa. Minnesota African United activities really focus on increasing resources needed to take advantage of entrepreneurship, employment, education, through healthcare, home ownership, and helping African small businesses to access capital. We do so in partnership and with the support of Prosper Africa. We believe that these activities also result in leadership development within the African diaspora community in the United States of America to become a contributing and a vibrant factor in the development of their home countries. Over the past few years, Minnesota Africans United have advanced trade relations between Minnesota and Africa by actually leading delegations of Minnesota companies, including African diaspora companies, to their countries of origin. This approach is actually promoting a two-way trade and investment relationships that benefit both the United States and our African countries. And we just ended US African Summit that is actually still in the minds of so many people here in the United States and in the minds of all the African diaspora. We are engaging all the African diaspora leaders, not only in Minnesota, but across the US and across the world, to serve as bridges to their home country government as a key way of helping advance economic prosperity in a way that creates jobs, it brings innovation in the home countries, and for all African diaspora that are also here in the United States. This was a key topic in our meetings and in our participation during the US African Leaders Summit that just ended in December 2022. And that is why today we welcome Madam Betty Mwangala Muhau, who is the CEO of BMMSWIFT Int'l Consulting Group, today as being the leader that will drive this economic prosperity in the Southern African region, starting with our home country of Zambia. Thank you, Betty, for all the tremendous work that you have done to bring together all the Zambian diaspora in the United States of America, since from New York, in Washington, D.C., visiting Minnesota, and traveling across the world, recruiting, engaging them, educating them about opportunities back in their home countries. You are a true replica of an African diaspora, a replica of a patriotic citizen, someone that loved the country and loved the country, did not leave the country behind, moving with the country in your soul and your spirit. We thank you so much, and we hope that we continue to work together to advance opportunities that work for citizens back in our countries and us. Beyond the US African Leaders Summit, Minnesota is actually working now so hard and is bidding to host the 2027 EXPO that is focusing on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is actually related to health and wellness, meeting Sustainable Development Goals number 3. And we are actually working as hard to take advantage of this opportunity that is going to bring to African diaspora, not only here in Minnesota, but across the world, particularly our own countries of origin, making sure that we are working so hard every day, day in, day out, to bring the international exposition to happen here in Minnesota, and also working to make sure that the small businesses, medium-sized businesses across the continent, all country government are able to participate in this expo. But this can never be possible. It can only be possible when the US wins. The United States is competing with 5 different countries, with Argentina being part of them, Spain being part of them, Serbia and Thailand. And this vote is actually going to take place in Paris. We need to earn the support of all the African country diplomats in Paris in June 2023. And we are committed to make sure that our home government, our foreign affairs ministers, our ambassadors in Paris, our ministers of trade support this initiative. This morning, we are going to hear from many speakers, but now I will not go into detail, but I will give the opportunity to Mark Ritchie, who will be the moderator of this event, to now take over. Once more, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, our dear honorable ministers from the country of Zambia. We love you, and thank you for supporting the initiative of African Diaspora. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Basil, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to do more or less each month for the past year now, these webinars that are about two-way trade and two-way investment between Minnesota and our whole region and a specific country. But Zambia is special. This is our second webinar, and we're looking forward to a trade mission. So today is especially important for getting things moving on some of the potential business opportunities and cooperation opportunities that you will be hearing about from the various speakers today. Basil mentioned earlier that Prosper Africa has really been our key partner in so many aspects of the webinars, the trade missions, the different kinds of conferences. And Prosper Africa, some of you saw the video in the introduction of today's webinar, giving you a sense of them as a one-stop shop. They have that as a key part of their work. And to give you just a little bit greater taste of that, Bill Fanjoy, the Senior Advisor for Private Sector Engagement, is going to join us for a brief time here. And Bill, I want to take really good care of the time and turn this program over to you to kick us off with a message from Prosper Africa. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Mark and Betty and Basil. It's so good to see you again, and everyone who's on the webinar today. Good morning or good afternoon. In just a sentence or two, Prosper Africa is here to meet with you and to meet with African businesses, diaspora businesses, American businesses, and American investors and African investors in two-way trade and investment, 360 trade. And that's important to you because it is as complex as you all are, as the diaspora community is in their transactions with Africa, in that they are not just trading a US item to Africa. They are then looking at supplying the United States with very critical supply, and being that critical supplier as a strong partner, stronger than some that we've had in our not so far back past, and linking investment in Africa to trade either there or back. So a good example is an investment of machinery to move up to be a supplier to Africa, but then also to the United States. So it's linking that investment to trade back here to the US, because it's very important for the United States to be the recipient of trade, as much as it has focused on in the past, trading to Africa. By linking trade to and trade back to Africa and from Africa and investment, we're also linking resources that have traditionally supported only development efforts or investment efforts or trade efforts, and we're delinking those so that they can be utilized for whatever your effort is. So in a typical trade transaction, we're looking at a partner in the US and a partner in Africa. Our question is, how can we strengthen that partner in Africa so that they are a stronger partner and they start looking at not just being a recipient or a development recipient, but then to engage in full 360 trade as an investee and then as a trader back to the United States. There are so many resources that we can bring to bear when we de-link them to their traditional route. And that's what we do every day, which is why today I'm here with my colleague, Jeremy Faber. He will be speaking later on today, and I'm rushing out to go meet with a US business, a diaspora business in Maryland that's looking at business in Zambia, of course. And so I will leave you with that and leave you with, that is our day job, to meet with businesses like yours, to speak with you now roughly about what we can do, but really saving time in the very near future to discuss at a more intimate level, what is it that you do and how can we bring the resources from whichever area of trade and investment to bear to grow whatever investment or trade deal that you have. So thanks so much for having me, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Bill. And drive safely. We want you to go up there and make a deal for somebody. And thank you and Jeremy both. I'm looking forward to hearing Jeremy's comments later in the day and seeing you again soon. So thank you so much. Our wonderful host for the day, Betty Muhau, told you about our presentations from the Government of Zambia, and we are just thrilled to have Ambassador Humphrey Chibanda here. His role as the National Coordinator for the Great Lakes region at the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and he's the Acting Permanent Secretary for International Relations and Cooperation. And so in those roles, he has a critical overview and a critical position for helping us advance this two-way street, this investment and commerce and relationship building. We are so grateful to have you, Your Excellency, with us today. And I want to turn the microphone over to you, Mr. Ambassador. John, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark. Honorable Chipoka Mulenga, MP, Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry. I believe Ambassador Humphrey Chibanda, Acting PS, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, is listening. Mr. Albert Halwampa, Acting DG, Zambia Development Agency. Madam Betty Muhau, CEO, BMMSWIFT International Consulting Group. Mr. Basil Ajuo, CEO, Minnesota African United. Mr. Mark Ritchie, President, Global Minnesota and co-founder, Minnesota USA EXPO. Madam Joy DiBedetto, Group Director, Communications Equity Group Holdings. Mr. Jeremy Faber, Private Sector Advisor, Prosper Africa. Madam F. Ukala, Founder, ImpactHer. Dr. Luke Powanga, Executive Director, Energy Africa Conference. Friends from the Diaspora, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. Allow me to lend my voice in welcoming you all to this virtual business forum for Zambians. Delighted to be part of this business forum, which seeks to highlight trade and investment opportunities in Zambia to Zambians living in the United States of America, as well as to business persons within Zambia, Africa, USA network. I wish to thank the representatives of the Zambia diaspora in the United States of America, the Zambian Embassy in the United States of America, and the Zambia Development Agency for the tireless work and collaboration in organizing this forum. I wish to encourage you to continue communicating regularly in order to facilitate the citizen-led, private sector-driven economic transformation agenda of our country. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry is responsible for formulating and administering policies and programs in the trade and industrial sectors in order to foster sustainable socio-economic growth and development for the benefit of the Zambian people. Through our ministry, government aims to provide a conducive investment climate and sound economic policies for the private sector to thrive. Government is also enforcing various pieces of legislation to promote ease of doing business and to facilitate trade, investment, and business development. Ladies and gentlemen, government recognizes Zambians living in the diaspora as forming the 11th province, and therefore is keen to ensure that the diaspora is not left out in national socio-economic transformation agenda. Calling upon Honorable Chipoka Mulenga, Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, to address us. Honorable Minister, sir.
Good morning that side, and good evening on my side. It's already 6:30 here in Ethiopia.
Thank you very much for joining us in the midst of this big AU gathering.
Thank you. Trust me, this meeting is very important for me. I just had to attend it, and I'm very grateful to have all of you join us and discuss this very important topic, primarily attracting investment back home here in Zambia. So I'm utterly excited that we are doing this, and thank you very much to you, the organizers of this event. And I'm very optimistic that after today, we'll be discussing transactions and investment back home. Allow me to observe all the protocols that have been laid before me by the earlier speakers. I recognize everyone here with utmost gratitude. My name, like has been said earlier, I am Chipoka Mulenga. I'm the minister responsible for investment in my country, irrespective of a sector where somebody wants to invest in. But one thing I must appreciate is that for many years, Zambia and the United States of America have had very strong bilateral relations, politically and in many other sectors or spheres of life. But our government wants to extend our portfolio of engagement through investment, through economic diplomatic ties that we want to do. And I just want to appreciate Betty and team and everybody that has been working tirelessly to see that we have this webinar here today, which I believe will culminate into many, many stronger business ties that we have. The first time I had a meeting with colleagues from this business forum was, I think, a few months back, if not a month in between, in Washington, D.C. And here we are today having this meeting. So I just want to say that United States of America, in my opinion, remains to be a strategic partner that Zambia wants to work with. And to do this, we have what we are calling in my country as the 11th province of our country. That is the diaspora. For a very long time, not only Zambia, but we have seen that many African countries have not tapped in the potential of their diaspora. So our focus now is to make sure that whichever resident of the US that is coming from our country and our continent should be that ambassador that speaks positive and takes a message about the goodwill for investment our country possesses. So it is the more reason why we are focusing on engaging the diaspora. And my government, through the leadership of our President Hakainde Hichilema, has created what we are calling the Diaspora Forum, where there should be diaspora and government direct engagements You know, my government is focusing on having a private sector driven economy. But to have a private sector driven economy, we should not also do it at the expense of the diaspora. The diaspora should bring in this investment and become part of the private sector that will drive the investment sector and job creation for our governments. And it is for this cause that I'm very excited that I'm with you on this webinar today to discuss quite a number of investment opportunities that lie in my country, from the mining sector all the way through to tourism, that within a short period of time, I can share some insights with you. I wish I could have stayed with you all the way through, but unfortunately, look, sorry, we've started a bit late. I have got a few other meetings that I have to do with other colleagues from other different countries. Therefore, I hope that my time that I will spend with you will be meaningful enough and will have some good insight on what Zambia is all about. Quickly, I must be very succinct in saying this. I'm very sure most of you know about how much blessed Zambia is, or should I say endowed with mineral resources, agricultural resources, wildlife, among many other things. But something that Zambia prides in the most is the people. This is our very most important resource. The Zambian population, as you may be aware, is very youthful, very youthful. We pride in our youthful population, yet it presents a challenge of creating jobs for them. Because you find that on average, the Zambian population is about 20, 21 years old. So that is not something that we take lightly, especially in a generation like this one, a phone age generation with advanced technology, where they are very well informed, they've got access to a lot of things happening around the world. Therefore, their demands are not simple and easy, are demands that really has to make government working. And it is for this cause that an opportunity like this one, where we have a webinar like this one, is something that I seize on behalf of my government to see what we can do. So quickly, allow me to say that before I talk about what opportunities lie in my country in form of investment, I want to assure you, because I've noticed that with interaction with a number of American business owners, a number of American political office bearers, like just last week, I had a meeting with Undersecretary of Commerce from the US who visited my country. The American investors want assurance that there is political stability in Zambia. One thing I can assure you is years in succession, my country has changed governments from one government to the next, one president to the next, from different political parties in a very peaceful transition. Every government respects the will of the people. Our growing democracy, which is really growing at a very fast rate, has continued to respect the will of the Zambian people through the ballot. Every leader that has been elected without resistance, which has been elected out of office without resistance, has moved on the instruments of power to the next. That political stability is something that the American business owners must be assured of. Then out of political stability, there is about the rule of law. Yes, like many other countries, not only Africa, but world over, there are challenges that have come in terms of the rule of law, challenges among many other things. But the New Dawn government has placed a lot of emphasis, a lot of commitment to making sure that the rule of law is upheld in my country. The rule of law will give certainty and stability to the investors that are coming in the country. And it's for the more reason why we want to strengthen the structures of our judiciary to indeed be independent from interference from the executive. We want the investors in my country to be certain that should there be a dispute in business undertakings between the government or an investor, there will be no interference from any government wing on how the judiciary will handle the case. We want the investors to be assured that the judiciary system is working on a framework that is very robust to protect their investment and safeguard their investment in this country. But I must assure you that even before we do this, years in succession, our government, our country has respected foreign direct investment. I think in many years of my understanding about investment and governance system, I've only seen one company having a dispute with my government and my government fully gets involved. And the reason why they got involved was to make sure that the asset does not deteriorate to certain levels where it cannot be recovered. And this must be very clear to everyone else. That was in a case where the past government with Vedanta, who owned one of the biggest mining companies in my country. Other than that, we have always lived side by side as a government and as a people with investors. And through the Zambia Development Agency, I am very glad that our executive director, Mr. Halwampa, is sitting with us today on this webinar. He's responsible for providing assurance in investment in our country. There is even a simple document, simple as it may sound, but very powerful, that we provide to our investors. And this is called an investment license, which provides incentives and statutes that qualify to provide incentives for our investors. This document is a document which the Zambian government signs on behalf of the people of Zambia and investors that come to our country. This is a document that the Zambian people have respected for time in perpetuity, and for a long time that we have held this document as a sacred document to attract more investment in our country. And our government itself has continued to respect that. Our culture, which is diverse, is something that does not pose any threat to any culture or any investor that is coming in from a different kind of this world. Because Zambians have got a culture which we share in common that is so embracing, so welcoming, and committed to be a part of the ecosystem of development, irrespective of the kind of investment that we have. These words, among many, not limited to these words that I've said, are among those that will give you comfort to say Zambia continues to be an investment destination that is attractive among many other countries within the region and Africa. But ultimately, we choose not only to work in isolation as a Zambian country alone. We want to work in collaboration with neighbors and other countries in the region. Because if we just choose to be independent, we'll be missing out on the many opportunities that we can draw from other countries within the region. And it is for this reason that even when we attract investment from the USA will not only enjoy the small population of Zambia as its market, but it will also share the opportunities that of the regional economic communities where Zambia is a part of. We have got the common market for East and Southern Africa. We have got SADC. We have got the recent newly established body, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Once you set your business in Zambia, you will have access to all these markets at concessional rates with a lot of privileges as Zambia itself will enjoy. Because our focus as a country and our policy is that once a company is set up in Zambia, it could be an American company, we will protect it, we will serve it as though it is just an indigenous Zambian company. Because our focus is for you to have a footprint in our country, to serve not only our country, but the region. Looking at our geographic position, where we've got 8, if anything, 9 neighbors, including Burundi, which we share the shores of the waters of Lake Tanganyika. We work together collectively, and we speak almost the same language when it comes to investment. So with these neighbors that we have, Zambia's geographic position gives it an opportunity to be at the center of production and logistic support, because it's a getaway into Southern Africa, Central, and even Eastern part of Africa through Tanzania and now recently the DRC, among many other countries. And this is something that we want to take advantage of and want to attract more investment. Coming now on board that with this new technology development in e-commerce, this is where we want to move in as a country as well, because we do not want to be left out in the digitalization of many other aspects of investment. Once we invest heavily in this sector, and I'm very glad to announce that one of the biggest mobile telecommunications in Africa, which is MTN, they are setting up their system of optic fiber in Zambia to be the hub for Southern Africa, a demonstration of confidence in the investment portfolios that we have set up in the country through the Zambia Development Agency. But quickly, let me say the vision that we have as a country and that which we are focusing on as a point of investment back home. It's value addition. For a very long time, we have lived as a country depending on extractive industry. Be it copper, our minerals, we have sent out of the country concentrates or semi-processed material. But we believe that to take care of this youthful growing population, we need to invest heavily in value addition. In the mining sector, in the timber sector, in the agriculture and agro-processing, in the cotton sector, among many other things. Or should I say, value addition is the way to go that we think we can do this. There is an AGOA system that we have in America, to which Zambia is a part of. Zambia has benefited very little from the AGOA system. Not that it's America's inability to support us, but it is Zambia's undeveloped sector of industrialization. It's a more reason why we are looking forward to seeing that this meeting that we have today brings us the support that we need for Zambia to benefit more from the AGOA. AGOA is more premised on getting value-added products, or should I say finished products, from Zambia, from Africa, into the US market. But we will continue to miss out as Zambia if we will be unable to value add or process our products into finished products. But we want to improve our industrial sector by giving value addition or producing finished products into the USA. And this is among the topics that we were discussing seriously with the American government and most recently with a visit by the Undersecretary. But how do we do this? We need American government, American business community, American investors to support us in the value addition sector. Because we want to produce things right the first time for the American market. And how do we produce this for the American market? Our vision is that we do not have to reinvent the wheel, because most American business owners have already attained the position we want to attain and they've gone beyond it. So if they can set up that investment of value addition in our country, in the textile sector, in the mining sector, especially mining sector, when we're talking about critical minerals, with the oncoming of electric vehicles, and Zambia has got 68% of the world resource that is needed into that sector. We want support from the American investors to set up in this country where we can produce right the first time for the American market. But what is of importance is producing the right quality, because Americans have got a standard which may be produced in Zambia, but does not meet American standards. So it's a more reason why we want the American Standards Institute to start speaking the same language with the Zambian Bureau of Standards, so that the moment we produce anything, we produce it right the first time. And it is for this cause that I hope on this meeting, we can come to a common understanding where these two institutes could be speaking the same language, so that should we produce any product in Zambia, they will reach the American market with the right standards. And the reason why we want to also continue to attract American investment in our country, American standards are accepted all over the world. So once we do this, this is something that American governments will support us to reach out not only to Africa, an American market, but America could be those partners of ours that could help us improve our investment portfolio to reach out to the rest of the world. So I think, let me not bore you with many words. I think I've said a lot to give birth to a bigger discussion on this platform. But I need to just say something that is of also importance. Borrowing the words of my brother, the Honorable Minister of Tourism and Arts, where I say, you need to work so hard and smart with pleasure and leisure. Yes. Zambia, on the tourist side of it, we want to have heavy investment in infrastructure, conference centers, hotels, among many other facilities. Because we have the raw materials, we have the wildlife, we have the different cultures that we have. We have got different traditional cultures that are happening on a yearly basis. But we need conventional centers where we could hold regional and world conferences. Here we are, I am in Addis Ababa because of an amazing conference center that we have. Zambia recently have another world-class conference center, which we are even able to hold many other regional conferences. But we believe we can do more. It is for this cause, given our geographic position, that we can draw people from different walks of the region to come and convene in Zambia and have these meetings. We have these traditional ceremonies in different parts of our country, which is so rich in diverse cultural blessings. But we need to set up conference centers and hotel facilities in those areas. You will see the wild, the elephants, the big five, among many others. But you need to rest in a very, very good and decent place. These things are there. The nightlife is booming right now in my country, where you have to go to have a good time in a pub, in a disco facility, among many others. But we still believe that we can do more by investing in many of these facilities. Like I said earlier, that we have a very youthful population that we are so proud of. But this youthful population, after working so hard and smart during the day, they need to have leisure and a good time later in the evening. That is also part of job creation and investment that we are providing in our country, and we should continue to provide. And we need strong and serious investment from our colleagues and partners from the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate for inviting me to be a part of this webinar. Thank you.
This was such a powerful presentation, Your Excellency, about not only the culture, but also the history and the way that you put the emphasis on addressing people's concerns, but also an emphasis on making this clearly a two-way street, a balance in life, working hard, but paying attention to leisure and pleasure, but also the importance of conversation. The standard setting questions, of course, are some of the most central ones in any trade discussions. And I'm so grateful for you to bring that message to us here today. It was exciting to see the momentum that came out of the first conversations and the conversations that continued in Washington during the summit. But I'm with you in hoping we get to seeing those deal making, those transactions, those idea generations that take this from conversation into economic development, jobs, yes, for the future for those young people, and yes, for today, for the industries. We as a nation in the United States, and specifically in Minnesota, our high-tech industries like our medical device and our electrical cars and electrical transport, we are dependent very much on Africa now and far into the future. And so seeing the mutual benefit to the kind of welcoming message and welcoming policies that Zambia have developed over many years is a huge positive force for taking today's discussions and turning it into deals. Before we get to our trade mission, which will come to Zambia later, there'll be lots of opportunities. And I want to encourage people watching today to use the chat room to make deals or to present ideas, requests, or questions, be sure that you're able to do that. We're going to move our conversation now into doing business in Zambia. This is the place where we begin to move the conversation forward. I believe that we will be hopefully able to bring Mr. Ambassador in later, who was not connected when we were in that part of the program. But the investment opportunity and facilitation is our next opportunity. In this next section, we're going to be hearing from people from Zambia who are facilitating investment and doing business. We'll be hearing from entrepreneur support organizations in the US and in other parts. We'll be hearing again from Prosper Africa. So use the chat function to let us know any of the kind of questions that you might have if you're observing. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Albert Halwampa, Acting Director General of Zambian Development Agency, ZDA, one of our most important sponsors for today's seminar. And welcome to the webinar. And let me turn the microphone over to you, Mr. Halwampa.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's a pleasure to participate in this very important engagement. Of course, we're back in Washington as the Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry, Honorable Chipoka Mulonga alluded to, and also the PS. We are happy to see discussions that took place in Washington being actualized, and definitely we're looking forward to fruitful transactions, deals, and leads, and of course, looking forward to physical, investment mission to Zambia by the U.S. team from Minnesota. Zambia is one of the countries that is attracting a lot of investment. A number of people call it the Switzerland of Africa. As you heard from the Honorable Minister, that is getting a lot of traction all over the world, which is a very good thing. You can see where we are situated as Zambia in the southern Central Africa, of course, close to 20 million population, but don't worry about the size of the population. In terms of market, we know how to make it bigger. We speak English. Of course, you heard from the minister, been very stable. We are on the 7th president now, all of them elected democratically, peacefully, ensuring that the investors, assets will be very safe. In a multi-party democracy, our culture, of course, stable. Of course, exchange rates always move up and down, but within acceptable margins. Of course, we've seen the culture in being one of the most, the best performing currencies in the world. And of course, inflation's down to 9.9 from 24%. I'm sure you all know the importance of having inflation that is manageable and low enough. It ensures that the incomes of citizens, hardworking citizens, middle class, and so on and so forth, is real, is able to buy enough goods. In terms of our economic progression, you can see that we've been moving progressively in terms of GDP. Of course, we've had some dips, but we are coming back. 2022 registered 3% growth. Of course, our GDP size is about $21 billion, quite very small. That's why we're having this virtual forum to grow our economy. Of course, United States of America is in its $25 trillion of GDP. How can we even get just a small share of that? If we could get to 100 billion, that would be very good for us. And it's through forums like this one that we can move our GDP. So the more investment, the more trade between our two countries, particularly investors from Minnesota, the more we will grow the Zambian economy. create jobs and wealth for its people. So you can see there's a lot of discipline on the fiscal space, issues to do with taxes is predictable, consistent, and I think there's always room to be flexible as far as the tax policies on investment is concerned. Yeah, so you can see that the current government, and I know this is very important, has placed governance at the center of the stabilizing the country's outlook in terms of how we are perceived by the world out there. I think key to the governance issues is eradicating corruption. A lot of efforts actually are being worked on. You heard from the minister that a lot of investors, they worry about corruption because corruption tends to distort the economy of any country and also creates high risks for any investor. So corruption is at the center of what the government is doing. Also added to that, prudent fiscal and monetary reforms. Of course, we continue to follow a robust monetary system that is driven by the Central Bank of Zambia. And also on the social side, we are doing our level best to lift the poor of the poorest through social cash transfers to make sure that there's fair distribution of wealth, no matter how little it is, but it has the potential to create a good welfare for other citizens that are underprivileged. On the economic front, I think we've seen our president concentrate so much, and rightly so, on trade and investment. He speaks this language, and we know that he's following whatever is taking place now through various channels. His focus is trade and investment, and that's why we are on this platform. Of course, we have an independent judiciary, strong legal system, which are very important for any country. And I think investors, they care so much on how strong the judicial system is in each country. So some of the key achievables, really, you can see that as a country, we aspire to be a middle-income industrialized country by 2030. Of course, this is only 7 years from now. Yeah, we are now on our 8th National Development Plan as a structured way of achieving what we want to do, just to give a bit of confidence to our investors that we are managing all our debt issues. As you know, if you don't manage debt well, it creates high risk to perception to the investors, and it kind of pushes them away. But we've heard a lot from cooperating partners, including the US, on how debt management matters to investors. And also added to that, the government launched the public-private dialogue forum where private companies, investors have a platform to discuss with government any challenges. And the president has challenged the private sector to say, tell us any challenges you are facing, any challenges related to the government or public sector related. And he has promised to remove such challenges as quickly as possible. So that's very, very important, to the investors, to make sure that you have a government that can listen to you. If there's any bureaucracy, if there's any red tape, you are able to flag that to government, and government will do its best to remove that red tape so that your investment can seamlessly grow in terms of creating jobs and also wealth for the Zambian people and indeed investors. If you look at some of the key indicators, we are first in Africa and fourth global on ease of doing business, on ease of getting credit. In terms of economic growth, we are 6th in SADC economy and also 7th in terms of easiest place to do business in Africa is at that date. Skilled labor force also is readily available in the country. We also have international trade, web-based customs data management, and also we have relatively excellent road and air infrastructure. Of course, as you will be seeing when I present the other opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities and gaps, whether it's road or air or rail infrastructure, but reasonably doing well in that area. In terms of GDP share, I think we can see that the sectors there, services, mining, construction, how they are contributing to the GDP of our country. Of course, mining is big. That's almost where the Zambian economy rests at the moment. Also services, but we heard the minister that we are focusing on value addition. We are focusing on manufacturing across sectors. We can have more investors from the United States of America and transfer that technology to Zambia. That would be great. In terms of real GDP, you can see how Zambia has been faring in the region. Of course, you can see there we are on number 5, not doing so badly, but I think there's room to grow given these engagements that we're having at the moment. So that's just a few indicators there. Just on Zambia, we are one of the top 10 African countries on ease of business countries. So I think that's very good for the investors to know that investment in business environment is quite conducive. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll take you to some incentives that obtain, quite a number of them, but I'll focus on when you come to Zambia as an investor, you come through to the Zambia Development Agency and make an application for an investment license. Once we give you the investment license, then it gives you access to a number of incentives. And key among them is for you as an investor to be able to import your equipment and also machinery into the country without paying any customs at all. So you'll be able to do that for the period of 5 years. And we also make sure that on the income tax side, once you have the investment license from ZDA, you have an incentive we call accelerated depreciation. And I know in the audience here, there are a number of accountants. And what that does, it simply helps you to pay less tax for a certain period of time. And also, if you come into Zambia and you qualify to be a local investor and set up in a multi-facility economic zones, these are zones that we've set up with special conditions. We've got 7 of them at the moment. You can choose whether Lusaka East, Lusaka South, or Central Province, Chivombo, or in the Copper Belt or Northwestern Province. Once you set up there, and you begin to manufacture products for export to any market, we will give you as an incentive, once you hold an investment license from the Zambia Development Agency, 10 years tax holidays, meaning that you will not pay tax on dividends, you will not pay tax on profit for a period of 10 years. And I think that's quite generous. That's quite a huge chunk for an investor to come in. As long as you qualify to be local investors, we should be able to give you that incentive. Also, if you come and invest in starch production, even if you are not exporting, but you are set in a multi-facility economic zone, but you are not exporting, but producing starch, you also qualify for 10 years tax holiday. So there are a number of incentives, and I don't want to go into each one of them, but this presentation will be shared so that you can look at, for example, if you're exporting a non-traditional export, meaning anything apart from copper and cobalt, the corporate income tax is 15%. If you're exporting an agricultural product, it's 10%. So a lot of incentives around there. And also, if you're an exporter, we will refund you the value-added tax when you are exporting. So once you have those acquittals crossing the border and you bring them to the Zambian Revenue Authority, which is our revenue institution, then you'll be refunded VAT. The idea here is to make sure that you as an investor and exporting, we help you to grow, expand by reducing the cost of doing business. This is just another, number of incentives that we offer, quite a number of them. Yeah, so in terms of the fiscal, non-fiscal incentives, as ZDA will assist you to make sure that we facilitate your immigration permits for your workers. We also facilitate meetings which you can hold with other stakeholders, which you may need to get more information. We are able to do that. So there are a number of these non-fiscal incentives which, as an investor, you are able to enjoy once you come into the country. Of course, I did mention that, as Zambia, you saw where we are located. We are in the center of Southern Africa. And this is an advantage to the country. And you can see how we are able to access a number of very powerful hubs in the world, the number of hours it takes and how we can connect, whether it's exporting the products or any other movements, whether it's London, Geneva, New York. You can see the number of hours there. So you can access these powerful hubs or cities from Lusaka without any problems at all. In terms of market access, we are surrounded by 8 neighboring countries. Despite our population being 20 million only, meaning consumers amounting to 20 million people, that's not pretty big. But look where we are. Very strategic, very blessed country. 8 neighboring countries. You can set up in Zambia, manufacture in Zambia, supply in Zambia, and your excess production can be supplied to all the neighboring countries. If you've got a good strategy, you can distribute your products within 24 hours to 8 countries, within 24 hours. And if your clients are paying in advance, whatever payment terms, whether it's the FOB or CIF or whatever port or destination, you could be receiving your payment within hours from 8 different central banks. So it's not easy to find a country like Zambia on this face of the earth. You are safe with a country like Zambia, which is stable, politically stable macroeconomic fundamentals, the stable, and very robust market access with all these neighboring countries. You'll be talking of over 500 million consumers immediately. And we're also now talking beyond SADC, COMESA, and the tripartite. We are talking of the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we are encouraging trading within Africa, producing within Africa, investing within Africa, and Africa also trading and investing with big other continents like the United States of America, the European Union, the Asian countries, and others. You can set up in Zambia, produce as a hub, and be able to export everywhere to the rest of the world. You can see the populations and GDP of SADC 372, GDP 755 billion, COMESA 560 million consumers, 768 billion GDP, the African continent of free trade area, 1.3 billion consumers, and 3.4 trillion GDP. Of course, these are numbers that are not constant. Population in Africa keeps growing. GDP keeps growing. Even in Zambia, the population keeps growing. So you will never go wrong when you decide to come and set up in Zambia. It's about the best destination you can ever locate your investments in Africa. So in terms of investment opportunities, there are so many in manufacturing, in agriculture, mining, renewable, tourism, the ICT sector. In agriculture, so far, the government has prioritized the 5 farming blocks. Each 100,000 hectares, we can grow wheat, we can grow soybeans, export to the rest of the world. We take no pleasure in war in the world, but the war in Ukraine and Russia has created these shortages within Africa and beyond. Nations looking for wheat and soybeans. So Zambia is a natural destination to grow these crops. We have immediately, we have 500,000 hectares for growing these crops. And also, you can start value adding in these farm blocks. Government is going to spend close to $300 million to put up backbone infrastructure to make sure that investors from Minnesota or Maryland or wherever from the United States of America are able to find backbone infrastructure, roads, irrigation facilities, and also energy facilities like power to be available in these areas for any investor who wants to heavily mechanize and produce for the rest of the world. Zambia is ready with its 5 farming blocks that are being made ready right now with injection of resources to deal with backbone infrastructure. So if you are thinking of growing soya, thinking of growing wheat to feed the whole world and even carry out value addition, Zambia is the destination. Of course, in terms of manufacturing and mining, combining these two, we are talking of the electric vehicle, batteries and accessories value chains. The market is open. This is a new area. But I know that we are working together with Zambia and DRC to make sure that we harness our endowments, standing together with these resources of copper and cobalt, manganese, lithium, to make sure that we become the hub and the future in terms of the green revolution in mitigating the climate change increase to no more than 1.5 degrees. We can see a lot of continents pledging to go to net zero by 2050. And if by 2050 we are pledging transition to net zero, then it means a country like Zambia is going to play a big role in the transportation system of this world. And this is a market, I believe, that the big players in the car manufacturing industry should eye and begin to look at very, very seriously. So Zambia is a natural destination. We can produce and final products or semi-finished products because we offer a stable, secure, safe environment for the investor and matched anywhere in Africa. With these resources, you can bring your investments in this sector in Zambia and you not go wrong. Also energy, we export energy into the region. We are investing more in the renewables, hydro, solar, wind, to make sure that we contribute to the greening of the atmosphere, to make sure that we also export to neighboring countries. So there's a lot of opportunity in the energy sector as well. Tourism, huge opportunities. We've got over 34 national parks. We have one of the best icon as per UNESCO classification, the Victoria Falls. All these natural wonders provides very unmatched opportunities for you to invest in animals. We've got, in the tourism sector, we've got wild animals that offer, the best opportunity for those who want to invest in tourism. So a lot of opportunities in ICT. We're still growing this area. We know that America brings a lot of value to the table in the ICT sector. So we are encouraging investors from Minnesota to look at this area and begin to consider coming into Zambia. So those are specifics of what I've been talking about in all those sectors. I don't want to bore you so much. I think we will be sharing this presentation so that you can see some of the projects that are being profiled. So in agriculture, you can see these are some of the specific profiled projects that you can quickly look at and begin to say, hey, Zambia is ready for business. Zambia is ready in these specific projects. You can see in agriculture, areas to do with tea, tomato, fish farming, and what have you. So these are some of the specific opportunities that we can share with you. We'll share with you the link where you find more than 100 profile projects. These are just some of the samples. More investment opportunity, of course, this speaks so much on tourism. We have got bush camps, development facilities along Lake Mweru in the northern part of Zambia, a lot of opportunities in hotels and lodges, services and infrastructure, ecotourism. All these opportunities are available in terms of also MICE, meetings, incentives, exhibitions. All these are available for investors to come and invest in Zambia. In terms of infrastructure and energy, I did allude to all these. We have petroleum and gas explorations going on. I've mentioned about electricity, opportunities in renewables, also refineries. As you are aware, we are strategically negotiating neighboring countries and also sources of, petroleum, so that we develop some of these refineries that can produce finished products, storage facilities, whether it's grain and the other products. We also have those opportunities that are available, transportation facilities available also in the country, whether it's rail and otherwise. We don't have a developed transport system like intra-city, like trams and all that kind of investment is still begging, We don't have that transportation system. And these are some of the areas we're talking about that we need investors from the United States to help us get to those levels. Zambia remains one of the best destinations, really, to invest. I think we have checked around the world and we see what Zambia is offering. It's almost unmatched if you look at Africa. And I think these engagements we are having at the moment are just but beginning. Zambia is progressing very well in all angles, the macros, the political space, the fiscal regime, the incentives regime, the opportunities available in all these other sectors is just evidence enough for us to begin investing in Zambia. We are encouraging investments into the country, partnering with Zambians, going into joint ventures with Zambians, and that way we believe that we will develop this country in a sustainable manner. So all these opportunities where Zambia is located, the market around it, the access to markets, I think is a compelling reason for investors from Minnesota and other places in the United States to begin to think of investing in Zambia. We are the most friendly country around the world. Its people are amazing. And I think we can do great works together investing in Zambia. we can grow the Zambian economy, we can develop products in Zambia, export to the rest of the world, and also to the United States. We can also take advantage of the AGOA market, where there's 3,000 products that are supposed to be exported into the market. Investors from the United States partnering with Zambian investors, we can grow these crops in states of America, thereby increasing the trade between our two countries. So Zambia is the destination to come to. We invite you as investors from the United States of America, and in particular Minnesota, to invest in Zambia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Albert, and I hope you've seen some of the praise and the appreciation of your presentation in some of the chats. People were very excited. So thank you very much for giving us this very comprehensive look, but also a picture into the future. It's clear that Zambia has been thinking about the advantages of its position, its advantages of its natural resources and its human resources, but also thinking about what are the needs of other markets, close by neighbors, markets all the way around the world like Minnesota. But this emphasis on our changing future in energy in particular is one of the things that I hear when Zambia comes up. People say, I want to get involved in that part of the economy. And so I so appreciate that you brought that on. There was one specific question that I wonder if you could give us some direction. Somebody wanted to know just a little tiny bit about the application or the process for the export agreement, the import agreement, the trade agreement. Is there a place on a website or a quick thing that you could suggest to the person who's asking?
Yeah, thank you so much. In terms of the application process for an investment license, of course, you'll find some of these guidelines on our website, but you simply get an application form and a checklist from ZDA, the Zambia Development Agency. And what happens once you submit all the documentation, it only takes about a week. We'll be able to process your application and approve it within 1 week. And you only need to pay 15,000 kwacha, which is split into two. When you submit your application, you pay 2,300 kwacha, somewhere there, which is almost probably less than maybe about $100 somewhere there. Close 150 somewhere there. When you are done with the application, we process it, then the balance is 12,000 kwacha. In total, it makes it 15,000 kwacha. Yeah. So pretty much fast the process. The period, the validity period for the license is 5 years. And also the period to access these incentives I did mention is 5 years. So the process is pretty fast. Once you submit all the documentation and you meet the checklist, which is very simple. The only thick document you'll be submitting amongst the checklist is the business plan, which basically tells us what you want to do. Are you going to export? How many people are you going to employ? What is the investment amount? Where will you be located? And just a business plan as usual. When are you going to begin to actualize the investment? When are you starting producing, or, so very specific document. I don't think a business plan is a big deal. Right. Yeah, this is something business people always do. Yeah, so pretty friendly process, Mark.
Great. Thank you so much for that very helpful additional information, the website, and all of the great things. And I look forward to meeting you in person on one of our trade missions, but I want to really appreciate all that you've shared with us today. And it's exciting to see the opportunities, but to hear the stories. Our next speaker is a woman leading an international organization, ImpactHer, which has been working directly with women entrepreneurs all over Africa, but especially in Zambia. F.A. Ukala is the founder of ImpactHer. And F.A., I want to turn the microphone over to you to talk about what are the opportunities and support in Zambia for women entrepreneurship in particular. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you so much, Betty. And also Basil for the invitation and observing all protocols that have been previously observed. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is F.A. Ukala, and as Mark indicated, I'm the founder of ImpactHer, an organization that works with women on the continent and has directly supported over 60,000 women in 53 African countries in growing their business and getting them access to institutional capital. Today, I'm going to do a bit of a narrow focus into Zambia and what the investment opportunities are there. But I am looking at it from a gender lens perspective, because that is just what I love to do, right? And how, as we think about investments into different African countries, but most especially Zambia, how we should also think about it from an impact perspective and putting your dollar to, a lot of positive views that would have triple or ripple effect on the communities and other parts of the population that are easily forgotten. The minister and the prior esteemed speakers have already talked a bit about Zambia. So I will just talk about, where women participate here. So women generally in Zambia are about half of the population. So I think that's something we should walk away with from the slide. We've talked about mining previously and the GDP. All of that looks great. But when we're looking at the population, which is about 19 million people, women make about half of that in Zambia. But I want to focus more on what is going on around the world and how, as we think about investment, how we can be part of that change that we're hoping to see. Digging around a bit, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the global food crisis going on in the past few years. I believe this was since COVID. And the numbers right now are sitting at about 140 million people facing acute hunger or hunger insecurity in Africa. That puts us about 1 in every 5 people going to bed hungry on the continent. So as a result of that, I thought about, how can we become agents of change? How can we make sure that as we're investing dollars or we're thinking about the dollars, we're really channeling it to areas where we all want to see drastic change? I mean, everybody needs food. It's a basic necessity in life. So when you look at the top sectors in Zambia, as had been previously mentioned, agriculture, mining, manufacturing, tourism, right? I want to zone in a bit more on agriculture. Agriculture in Zambia, it's actually, as I said, a big sector. But what is really interesting there is that 90% of the agricultural producers in Zambia are actually smallholder farmers, right? They are not the big companies. They are not the giant multinational. These are the small people, the people you find in the rural areas, the small communities. Zambia is projected to have about 2 billion agricultural exports by 2026. 2 billion, right? So what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of opportunity for growth there. There's a lot of opportunity for you to become, to have part of that pie, right, as returns. And then when you also look at the participation, about 55% of employment in agriculture in Zambia are women. And even as we look further there, right, we also, I think, heard one of the ministers talk about the fact that Zambia has a lot of land available for agriculture. But when we even sort of break that down a little bit, it's about 42 million hectares of arable land, but only 1.5 is cultivated each year, right? Only 1.5 million of that, that's about 10% or so. Other numbers say about 10% are cultivated each year. Yet we have 140 million people going to bed hungry. Something isn't right? We can help connect that. We can help solve that problem. So as a result of that, I thought to walk you through a story of one of the women we've supported. Her name is Catherine. She lives in Zambia, and a Zambian woman that is a honey producer. Now, you would call that manufacturing, indeed, but she's working with a lot of the smallholder farmers, those that farm in the beehives, to be able to produce honey for both the Zambian market and export. So if we're looking at her business, Catherine, again, she's a small business owner, not a multinational, just a small woman running a business in Zambia, whom ImpactHer has supported in building out this business so that it will be sustainable. She directly employs about 10 to 20 people. However, she works with over 2,000 farmers across the northern province of Zambia. She also exports about 100 tons of honey to other markets, so not just Zambia as well. And her revenue, again, she's a small business owner. Her revenue is between 600 to 1 million a year. I can't disclose what exactly it is, but I'm just shedding light of how women are participating in this sector. Now, to be able to do this, right, it takes a lot of intentional work because obviously one of the huge factors or one of the huge impediments we have found is the access to finance for women on the continent. There's a $42 billion gap. So someone like Catherine has a lot of opportunities to export even into other markets. For example, when you look at the export opportunities for the US, the US, for example, imports about $430 million worth of dollars worth of honey, right? So the top 5 countries are the United States, Germany, Japan, France, and the UK. They're all looking for honey to import into their country. And even if we look into Africa itself, we're looking at South Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Mauritius, and Botswana, right? And most of these countries, I mean, if you look at the top 5 we're talking about at least 100 million, right? And Catherine's business each year on year, is growing at a rate of 60%, right? So she gets her revenue this year, she's doing well, she grows another 60, right? But the opportunity is there. But to be able to scale, to be able to meet market demands, and to be able to get into these countries, capital is definitely needed. What are the benefits of working with women-led entrepreneurs on the continent? Women tend to invest more into, we've seen the data already, invest more of their income into their families, their communities, and so forth. But people like Catherine, working with local farmers to be able to process honey for the Zambian and the export market, are also contributing income to about 20,000 rural households in these communities they're working with, and also helping improve the diet of 250,000 farmers there. Most of this farming and most of the honey harvesting period occurs, I believe, during the non-farming season. So it actually helps add on an average $100 to their income each year. So again, I think as we think about, and I've talked about this slide, as we think about, where we're sending our money to, let's also think about how are we ensuring that we are bridging the gap? How are we ensuring that we are investing for impact? This slide here just shows the survey ImpactHer conducted to understand what the funding gap for women in Zambia are. And we found that agriculture had the highest gap, where a lot of women are saying, look, we need money to scale. We need to be able to reach markets that we wouldn't generally reach. And why women, as I had already alluded previously, about 50% of the Zambian population are women. You invest in them, you're able to also help change the narratives of their communities, their families from an economic standpoint. We also know that 80% of household spending are controlled by women. I think this is data that came out years ago. So what does this mean? You empower a woman, you invest in her, she gets the resources she needs to get. And guess what? She is making consumer spending decisions. So she has more disposable income to purchase product, to contribute to the economy, which ultimately would help with the economic growth of the countries. And this is another exciting data for me. We've done a lot of studies and research, and we find that women-led companies apologies to the men, women-led companies tend to have a higher return on revenue than purely male-led companies. So we're talking about people are able to get at least 2 times the amount of the dollars they invested in a women-led company as compared to a male-led company. So when we think about impact investing, let's think about women. Let's think about the community. Let's also think about, how we're ensuring that we're helping to close the gender parity through spending our good old dollars. You will still get your profits, but you're also making impact in your communities. So what is ImpactHer doing about all of this? As I said, for a woman like Catherine, we helped her access the markets. We helped her think about what export markets she should look at. We helped her try to connect her to investors and so forth. But beyond Catherine, what are we doing? As I mentioned earlier, we're training women on the skills they need. We're training women on the business, vocational and business skills they need. We are helping with digitalization. I believe the Honorable Minister actually shed light on that. He spoke about the need for digitalization, which is extremely important in the context of the AFCTA, where a lot of things will be digital, right? We're helping bring businesses online. The minister also spoke about the importance of being e-commerce ready, and ImpactHer has been able to bring about 866 women-led businesses online, and also help unlock about $5 million in capital for women-led businesses as well. So at this point, I would wrap up the conversation. I know I only had a few minutes before Joy would go in, but again, I think the goal here is, when we think about investment, let's also think about sustainability. Let's think about the community. Let's think about impact and empowering not just the few people on the table, but the people in the rural areas that don't have access. Because guess what? For Africa to be able to solve its hunger problem, we cannot leave the rural community behind. And that also means we cannot forget about the 50% or so of women that are actively involved in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, FA. And it's inspiring the work that ImpactHer has been doing. But what's inspiring, of course, is the stories of the businesses that are created and grow and expand. And I'm very appreciative of you giving us this deeper dive into reality of the lives of, well, in this case, half the population, but the point being that we have to be all in to make a real world system, a trade system work. And you've helped us do that. So thank you very much. And thank you for your time today. I know you have to run, but I know the people from Zambia now have a new way to think about some of the other possibilities, thanks to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe before you go, if you have any questions, we'll definitely direct them to you. And if anyone in the audience has questions for Efe, please leave them and we'll give them to her. And once she responds, she can either email them to you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We're going to move to a panel discussion. Early on, we heard the name of Jeremy Faber, who is one of the private sector engagement advisors at Prosper Africa. And Jeremy's been a central person in helping us throughout this entire year, putting our webinars together. But he's invited on a couple of the businesses that are doing very successful work now. And Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you to introduce Wilmot and Eric, and take it away.
Honorable Chipoka Mulenga's hand is up. Not sure if you want. Sorry, Jeremy.
Okay. Sorry for I raised my hand. I think I just wanted to quickly say this, and I also seek permission to be excused from this very important webinar. And I will leave the permanent secretary and our executive director from ZDA to continue with the meeting. I have a call with the minister from Tanzania and Zimbabwe that I need to take care of in the next 1.5 hours. It's the reason why I'm leaving, not just out of neglect. Well, I just wanted to agree more with my sister who just presented. Indeed, we have quite a huge amount of arable land with a lot of potential to be tapped in, but yet very little has been done in. But we want to take advantage of the region and the world and produce more, not only for Africa, but for the world. It's unfortunate with what we have with the war in Russia and Ukraine, but also that presents an opportunity to fill in the gaps. Much of the African countries had been depending on Ukraine for cereals, wheat, and the rest of them. For years in succession now, Zambia has been self-dependent and self-sufficient in production of wheat. But we want now to produce for the rest of the world and for Africa. And it's a more reason why we have apportioned 250,000 hectares of land, of which about 100,000 hectares is particularly separated for wheat and sunflower production. So investment in that sector is something that we are looking for, and we want to grow the portfolio of investment into this sector. And I also want to say something more to the statement she made about by the year 2026, $2 billion worth of exports will come from agriculture exports. And truth be told, yes, 96% of production of corn, if I say it the way you say it in the US, we say maize in my country, is done by the small-scale farmers, while only 4% is done by the large-scale farmers. This was a result in the past. There was inconsistency in policies by governments, which made unpredictable investment strategies, among many other things. But we have decided as a government on behalf of the people to have very stable policies that are predictable and provide stability and safety for investment. But to achieve this $2 billion worth of exports from agriculture, value addition is key. So we need to invest heavily in agro-processing. And I really hope that from this meeting, we will have people that will express a lot of interest in investing in that agro-processing sector, as much as we invest in agriculture itself. Thank you very much. I really appreciate, and please, all the very best in the rest of the discussions.
Thank you for that very important intervention and reminder. The processing, the value added, that's what makes trade the driver for better life, not just a raw extractive economy. So thank you very much. Jeremy, back to you.
Mark, thank you very much. Yeah, we heard from Bill Fanjoy at the top of the webinar about the two-way nature of trade and investment that Prosper Africa is supporting. I also want to mention that the United States government is working very closely with the government of Zambia on a number of fronts. And I love the information that we heard today for our businesses on how to plug in, how to become an investor in Zambia, some of the great areas that are ripe for investment and for work between the U.S. and Zambia. With that, I do want to invite Eric Sheppard to jump on and talk a little bit about his work with the Great Dismal Swamp and the Western Province. Eric and I have had a chance to get to know each other over the last year, and they have some really interesting work going on there. And Eric, if you could just spend a couple of minutes, I know we're running behind time, to tell us about that. And then I'll jump back in and we'll talk about some of the buyer-supplier work we're doing. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Jeremy, and all protocols observed. And thanks to Betty, Basil, and Mark for just a fine Zoom webinar you're conducting. But my goal is to connect the African-American community on the African continent through heritage tourism. The Great Dismal Swamp is now being under consideration for a National Heritage Area. It was a refuge for our ancestors who were escaping slavery during that era. And in Western Province, we have developed a strategic tourism partnership with Western Province and the Barotse Royal Establishment to share information on the history of the slave trade, heritage tourism. We want to build a facility there. We have been granted land, and we're looking at the hospitality community coming in with different opportunities to build, as well as all the other industry sectors there we want to touch agriculture, transportation, and the like in Western Province. So we really appreciate the opportunity and, of course, the warm welcome that we received in Western Province, unlike anywhere in Africa. So I'm very proud of them and proud to be doing it. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for inviting me.
Thank you, Eric. Basil has your contact details. So anyone in the call right now who's interested in learning more about that, it's more than just cultural tourism. There's a big trade component as well as an economic development component for the Western Province, which is super exciting. By way of introductions, I actually worked at the U.S. Embassy in Zambia for over a year. I lived in Lusaka, and so Zambia is very close to my heart, and I had the opportunity to travel throughout the country and just see the incredible opportunities there. Lots of things are currently happening. Every day, new things are happening in Zambia. And for example, just yesterday, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and the Zambian Association of Manufacturers signed an MOU with the government of Zambia to invest money to provide training, strengthening partnerships, and prioritization of inclusion of women and youth-owned businesses to really strengthen the ties between the United States and Zambia. They haven't even issued a press release on this yet. This happened last night, and I've been lucky enough to follow this along and now get to mention it to you all. Very shortly, you should be able to visit the Zambia Association of Manufacturers website. It's zamsomething.zm. If you Google it, you should be able to find it. There should be information on there on how to plug into some of these, really to help drive investment-ready manufacturing sectors in Zambia with the right partners to push that forward. A big component of that is the buyer-supplier network. To that end, I'd like to invite Dr. Wilmot Allen from Venture Lift Africa, who is participating with Prosper Africa to connect the dots between buyer-suppliers to really look at this 360 and two-way trade model. Dr. Allen, are you able to jump on for a couple of minutes and tell us about some of your awesome work that you're doing? Very briefly, through an African Trade and Investment Program, which is a $500 million investment from the U.S. government into all of Africa entirely, we've created a new way of connecting two-way trade and investment. And there Dr. Allen is. Yes, sir. Please jump on.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And first of all, congratulations on this event, on these actions and initiatives to support two-way trade investment between the U.S. and Zambia. I want to thank Basil in particular and Prosper Africa. I just want to briefly just introduce what we do. So we're very privileged and happy to say that we are implementation partners with USAID and Prosper Africa. And our company is Venture Lift Africa. It's an advisory firm that promotes two-way trade and investment. And we have been assigned the task under ATI 001, the Continental Services Agreement, to do a couple of important things. One, to disseminate information and knowledge about what AGOA is, its requirements, and how it can benefit companies in Africa and buyers in the US. Also, after that, to identify individuals that are part of institutions, chambers, business associations, etc., which are who are interested in becoming AGOA advisors for a particular region. So, for example, we intend to have in Zambia 2 or 3 AGOA advisors who will be responsible on demand to helping, assisting, and consulting and advising Zambian companies, the questions they have about requirements under AGOA registration, different classifications and codes. This is a very comprehensive assignment. It will cover all of Sub-Saharan Africa as well as all of the US. So as you can imagine, with 35 AGOA eligible countries, we will be busy. But we'd love to tell you more about that. I'm going to leave our company's information in the chat, an email address. And so we look forward to hearing from you. Again, Venture Lift Africa. We are AGOA trade implementation partners. In the next 7 to 10 days, I plan to be in Lusaka. I am based in Nairobi, American, but based in Nairobi for the last 8 years, and a proud partner with USAID and Prosper Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. And this is a great piece. You know, AGO is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which allows certain goods to be exported to the U.S. completely duty-free. This is the two-way nature of what we heard earlier from our Zambian government colleagues about what it takes to then import into Zambia. So we can tie this all together here and really look at the two-way nature of that. I know we're running low on time. You can find us at prosperafrica.gov. Any of the tools and resources that were mentioned during the call today are available on there. We represent over 80 tools and resources throughout the entire United States government. That is the one-stop shop that Mark alluded to earlier. And I think I welcome everyone to come over. And Wilmot, thank you for sharing your contact details there.
Thank you so much to all of you and for being aware of time. I want to move right directly to our final speaker, focusing on the energy question. Dr. Luca Puanga, Professor of College of Business and Economics at Regis University. The microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Mark. All protocols observed, and I would like to thank you, the organizers, for inviting me and be part of this this important event. You've heard from the different speakers about Africa, from the ministers and from EFE, talking about the different industries in Zambia. Well, all that needs energy, so I cannot overemphasize the importance of energy. And if you look at a quick snapshot of Zambia, you will see that the installed capacity is just about 300 megawatts, with hydro being the main contributor at 2.3 megawatts. And also, when we come to renewable energy, we'll see that we are just talking about 91 megawatts, which means there is a lot of opportunities for us to do something. And let's begin by looking actually at the population of Zambia. The population of Zambia is divided, if you can divide into rural and urban. You're looking at 40% living in the urban areas and 60% in the rural area. Now, if you look at the actual access to electricity, you'll find that Zambia's access to electricity is about 44.5%. You can just make it for 45%. And that is divided into 82%. The 40% gets that 82%, the urban area. And 14% of the balance is the bulk of the people. We're talking about the 60 million, the 60% of the people just getting 14%. So, which means there are a lot of opportunities. If you look at what is happening right now, we can look at the urban areas and we can look at the rural areas. All of those places, if they have access to the national grid, they are rationing in terms of electricity. So if you look at the solutions, we can begin looking at the urban areas. And to do that, we have to look at the entire picture, which means we are looking at the power generation through transmission and all the way to distribution. The power generation in the past, Zambia used to have a one buyer type of approach, but now they've actually liberalized that. Anybody can come in and produce electricity. So there is a lot of opportunities as far as investors are concerned. And if you look at Zambia again, Zambia is about the size of Texas. So there are ample opportunities. And if from power generation, we can look at what is actually going on right now, where we have ZESCO being the main producer, and then having some small independent power producers, with that vacuum that has been left, where we need to get to a level where we are not rationing power. So you have a lot of opportunities as an investor to get into that particular space. And now there are different ways of going into that space. One would be to generate power directly to put into the national grid, and the other would be looking at the commercial and the industrial sectors, those that are not getting stable electricity because, of course, of the limited power supply, and those that are depending on diesel power, and we can win them off the diesel power so that now we are providing cleaner energy. So, and the beauty about if you're looking at off-grid is that you don't even need to deal with the government per se in terms of getting PPAs. There have been purchasing power agreements. You just need to get a power supply agreement with the person who is who you are going to be supplying energy to, and that's all you need. And of course, the process is much more much easier to navigate as compared when we are looking at the PPA. But even with the PPA, the government is trying hard to make that as smooth as possible so that we can boost the production of energy. Now, the other piece that we can look at is the rural electrification. And this is where you can make a big impact in terms of crop irrigation, agro-processing, small-scale mining, and that will also boost tourism. And it's much easier for you to deal with the rural electrification because, I mean, Zambia has got such a good topography, so that we have a lot of small rivers and they are all flowing. I mean, the topography looks very good. So that what you can just do is you can go in there. I do understand the fact that people are scared or they think it's going into hydroelectric power generation is a little bit on the risk side because of the fact that Zambia has been at the forefront for climate change variations, and those variations have affected the flow of water in the rain patterns, and as a result, rivers are not as full as they normally would be. But even with that, you can still create some some more hydros that you can use. You can do solar, you can do wind, and even though it's not very well known about how much we have in terms of geothermal, there are also opportunities in geothermal because we know we are part of the Great Rift Valley, and it's just a question of exploring more, and we are going to find to find the fact that we do have geothermal. If our fellow countries, I mean our neighboring countries like Tanzania, Uganda, they do have geothermal, we can expect us to have geothermal as well. And we can also create mini grids and microgrids. So there are ample opportunities. And one of the biggest opportunities that I see, which hasn't been explored very substantially, is supplying electricity as a service. Most times investors are looking to find some megawatt in a rural area. And when they don't find it, they get back and say, hey, look, there is no business here. I've been trying to find a buyer. I can't find a buyer. But the thing is, when we talk about rural areas, we have to start thinking about how can we help the small business farmer? How can we help the guy who's running a mill over there? How can we help somebody who's doing small mining? So if we invest in that, we work with those people, we sort of just invest in particular projects and say, okay, what we'll do is we'll find you a customer. We are going to find you. We are going to help you with let's say dryers and so on, the equipment that you need for you to be successful. And if we do that, we are going to generate now other small businesses, secondary industries coming up, and those secondary industries are going to need power from us. So in that sense, we are able to generate the megawatt that we want, but it's a long-term plan. But that is something that we can really capitalize on if we're thinking of going into the doing business in rural areas. But overall, one other area that hasn't been exploited is the fact of energy efficiency. Most of the refrigerators, most of the house appliances that are used are not energy compliant. So if we can find a way of making those appliances energy compliant, and even offices, the heating, the air conditioning, if we can find ways of reducing the use of energy, we are going to free up a lot of capacity. Because, I mean, energy efficiency is the easiest way that we can actually look at creating capacity. Look at South Africa, look at Ghana. In fact, Ghana, they even they reduced the usage by 100 megawatts. That is the whole plant that you are looking at. So in this case, if we can, this is one of the opportunities that is available in Zambia. And now the question is, obviously, we've been talking about all this stuff, and I can't even go into the incentives that the minister and the other people have actually elaborated on. The question is, how do you get into Zambia? Well, there are two ways that we can do that. One has already been elaborated for you in terms of going through the Zambia Development Agency, and the other one can be through my company, which is the North American Development Group. And what we do is, our main aim is to help reduce the gap in terms of energy supply. So we can help facilitate your entry in Africa. In fact, I'm trying to speak with Jeremy. We've met on a number of occasions in terms of through the internet, but now we would like to bring the topic offline and have a conversation either face to face or by telephone. That is, how do we facilitate the entry of investors into Zambia or into Africa in general? Because normally what happens is you are well-meaning and you want to get into that particular country, but you don't have the ways of going into the country because you don't have a link point. So we provide that link point, and when we work with you throughout the project from inception all the way to operation. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that the project doesn't go down the drain just because somebody along the way messed up, or there were some cultural differences, or there were some barriers, or some other occurrence that happened, which we could easily have resolved. But since you are not seeing things the same way, you end up having a lot of problems in that project, and usually the project ends up being discontinued. Oh, sorry.
Dr. Palanga, let's make sure that folks have your email in the chat so they can find a way to get to you and to your company, because you're presenting a very comprehensive picture, both of the needs and the opportunity, but also of how you and your company could help them in this process. But I want to make sure, because some people have to leave right at the head of the hour. So if you could put your contact, best email, website, etc., so that people can get a hold of you directly, that would be fantastic. And thank you so much for bringing this big picture about the sector that sort of drives us all. It's the energy that's, whether it's agriculture or mining. Thank you so much. Betty, I promise to bring this right back to you. We're only a little bit over time, but I want to give it to you to close us out, because I know some of our viewers are having to leave right now.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just to our viewers, if anyone has questions, please leave them and we'll definitely attend to you. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you so much to our speakers. On behalf of BMMSWIFT Consulting Group, the organizers of the webinar, the Zambia Development Agency, ZDA, our keynote speaker, Cabinet Minister Honorable Chipoka Mulenga, MP, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, through the leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, would like to thank you and the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Mulongoti. We are grateful to you for finding time in your busy schedule to be with us. We thank our partners, our speakers, our investors, and each one of you that found time to be part of this webinar. Africans United for putting up this webinar and the flyer. Prosper Africa through Jeremy Faber, who has been working awesome and amazing things behind the scene. We also thank our Zambian embassy in Washington, D.C. through the leadership of the Deputy Chief of Mission, Ms. Margaret Kapia. For this support, they supported this mission because it benefits the people of Zambia. We further extend our gratitude to our viewers across the US, UK, Zambia, and all over diaspora for tuning in. We hope this helps, as this is just the beginning of more things to come. BMMSWIFT International Consulting Group is an organization running a program called Diaspora Push Agenda 2023 and beyond. This program will be implemented under the theme, Connecting Minds, Creating Wealth. The Diaspora Push Agenda 2023 Beyond program is the first of its kind on the continent of Africa, especially specifically designed to create a unique African Diaspora AD1 platform for promoting investment and business networking as an effective way of discovering mutually beneficial opportunities for sustainable development. This will be characterized by profitable growth, global market penetration, and wealth creation. We believe this is the right time to initiate the implementation of this program because African countries are evidently ready to do business with the rest of the world. And Zambia is among the leading countries in this purposive action. To confirm this, we refer to the statement by His Excellency, Mr. President Hakainde Hichilema of the Republic of Zambia during a bilateral meeting with the US Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, as follows. There is a need to extend the envelope of investment between Zambia and other countries to unlock the investment potential of the country like Zambia in various sectors, such as agriculture, just like other speakers have said, infrastructure, agriculture, energy infrastructure, which can help the growth of food security of the country. The program is essentially private sector driven and will operate as a continental particular purpose vehicle that complement African countries' effective, attractive investment in their respective economic. For the industrialization, job creation, especially for the rapidly growth youth population, technology transfer, and wealth creation. BMMSWIFT will continue to work hand in hand with the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, the Zambia Development Agency, ZGA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation through the embassies. We will continue coordinating and collaborating. We will continue working with other partners to ensure quality development and investment in Zambia. We're also available to work with other organizations that may have the same ideas and goals to betterment of our country and other African countries. The specific objective of the Diaspora Push Agenda 2023 and beyond are to promote and attract investment estimated at 2.6 billion in the next 2 years, to sensitize the Zambian diaspora community and about the objectives of their respective national diaspora policies, economic, diplomacy agenda, and other relevant policies, to host trade and investment conferences, forum, networking, meetings, missions, and exposition for information sharing and opportunities for discoveries, to assist the diaspora individuals, firms, and organizations in smoothly setting up businesses operations in Zambia. I end by saying, if you can't fly, you can run. If you can't run, you can walk. If you can't walk, you can then crawl. But all means, keep moving. This journey is the journey and we move on. Zambia and Africa, we are moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you once again. And I would like to also mention our next webinar will be on 7th of April this year. We'll definitely please stay in touch, stay tuned, follow our Facebook page. We'll definitely, you'll get more information. However, if there are any questions, we'll definitely reach out to us. Our email, BMMSWIFT Consulting Group @gmail.com. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Betty. Basil, take us home.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Betty, and thank you for everyone for these wonderful learnings. We know last year we hosted about 6 webinars. We traveled to 5 African countries, including my great nation of Cameroon, Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, and Zanzibar. This year, we have just hosted this webinar. The plan is to lead a trade mission to Zambia. That will be our first trade mission this year. We are still organizing and trying to tie this trade mission along with very, very big events around the region. We now have one event that will be in Botswana from 11 to the 14th of July. That will be organized by the Corporate Council of Africa. We are still looking at what kind of event. We typically hit 2 countries at the same time. While it's easier to go to Zambia, you've heard from the minister, visa is not an issue. Open doors, please have your passport. Get ready for an announcement and you get this going. Thank you so much. Thank you, Betty, and we will get in touch. Let's wait to hear back from our video from our technology. Mr. Trokon, thank you. Why don't we get a farewell message from the President of the United States, President Joe Biden? Thank you.
We believe in the nations of Africa, in the continent-wide spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation.
The African continent is home to many of the fastest-growing economies in the world, with the rapidly expanding middle class, a young, diverse workforce, urbanizing populations, and endless opportunities.
One of the most important elements of it to me is to shift the narrative in the way that the West engages with Africa writ large. For far too long, it has been seen as a region filled with problems and few opportunities. And I think that we should be shifting that to look at it as a region that does have challenges, but is also filled with opportunities.
Prosper Africa brings together the power of 17 U.S. government agencies and market experts to identify investments, secure deals, and create new trade pathways between the nations of Africa and the United States.
I'm a huge fan of Prosper Africa. I've seen what it can do and how it can help companies like Cisco and how engaged the people on the ground are. They also bring a very clear and objective view of what their role is going to be, what their expectations from Cisco are.
We're a one-stop shop, so companies don't have to waste valuable resources navigating Washington to do business in the United States and across the African continent.
Working with Prosper Africa is so easy because there's a deal room and we're able to present a pitch. And Prosper Africa basically stands as an intermediary between us and investors and businesses that could be interested and help bridge the gap. So it actually ends up being easier for us than to spend the effort chasing individual investors sort of across the US.
Through Prosper Africa, the US government has helped close hundreds of deals, generating billions in new exports and investments. And the prospects for future growth and continued shared prosperity are as large and as vibrant as the continent itself.
I used Prosper Africa's support to identify the appropriate funders for our organization.
Prosper Africa can give us that introduction. They can give us the credibility. They can help us validate us as being good actors. And that's the important thing.
Being able to use this Prosper Africa platform allows us to reach the right investors. That allows us to grow and scale our business to the rest of the emerging markets.
Working hand in hand with the private sector and African governments, Prosper Africa strengthens two-way trade and investment, supporting thousands of jobs for African and American workers.
We must all work together to advance our shared vision of a better future, a future of growing trade and investment that advances prosperity for all our nations.